I think adaptogens are one of those things that make people feel like they're doing something productive for their health, when in reality, they're not actually making that much change because they're not treating things they actually need to be working on, such as drinking water and eating regular balanced meals. That's why they're so appealing to everyone, because it's that easy, quick fix, one pill wonder.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Nutrition Digest podcast. We are your hosts and registered dietitians. It's just Alicia and Tara today. Summer is going out of town to do something for Cirque du Soleil, right?
Yeah, she's performing again.
Yay.
And we are so proud of her, and we're excited to hear all about it in the next episode.
Yeah, we'll have to ask her how it goes. So we're covering today's topic, just the two of us. We are here to debunk some myths today about adaptogens specifically, and just shed some light on what they are and which ones actually have some research backing them and which ones don't. They are major players in the wellness space right now. There's so much stuff about adaptogens out there. When I was looking into this topic, it's like so many YouTube videos pop up, so many TikTok videos pop up, and so few of the people actually know what they're talking about.
Well, and I think that because cortisol is also a big focus area too, that's where people are tapping into this product. It's like, oh my God, cortisol this, cortisol that, cortisol belly, cortisol face, whatever. You have cortisol, which we've covered in previous episodes, that I think this just like makes sense for us to kind of debunk now that everyone has their own proprietary blend.
Yeah. Oh, all of these beautifully marketed products, like they're very tempting, but do they actually work? That's what we're going to answer today. So you've probably seen things like mushroom coffees, Mud Water, I think is the brand that like we see the most often, stress support powders, cortisol balancing supplements, and adaptogens just being added to everything from protein bars to lattes. They're kind of in everything now.
Now, even in non-alc cocktails. I found one the other day that was like a mixture of like adaptogens in this non-alc, like alcohol replacement drink. And I was like, whoa, this is new.
Yeah. I think humans are kind of attracted to the idea of potions.
Yeah. Witchcraft.
Yeah. It's like, ooh, this elixir has magical properties and it's going to make me feel whatever.
Well, you know, that's what the fictional book universe is at. Witchcraft and fairies and warlocks. Oh my.
Just bringing it into our normal everyday lives. And if you're not going to have alcohol, you might as well have a magic potion, you know?
Exactly.
Like, why not? Before we dive into all of our sciencey intense topic today, I have some random questions for you.
Okay.
Number one, have you done a VO2 max test on yourself before, or have you gotten a VO2 max test done?
No, just on my Garmin watch. It's very interesting, actually. The Garmin and the Apple give me two completely different, because now that I have both,
Yeah.
Have you done one?
I did one just recently, a few weeks ago, as part of like a research study for Google, which is why I'm wearing two watches right now. It was really cool and really interesting and very hard. I was just wondering if you had done it, because I feel like you should do it.
Yeah, I really should. I have access to it, so I really should do it at some point or another.
I mean, it's not like going to change anything about my daily behavior or my training or any of that. It's just cool to know.
Well, and I'm always curious to know from the effect of like, if I am doing a progressive training block for a specific event, am I actually seeing changes the way that I should be seeing changes in theory if I'm doing things properly? That's what I'm curious about. Yeah.
I can definitely feel my VO2 max get better from the beginning of a training cycle to the end of a training cycle. Like right now I'm peaking. I have my longest long run before my race this weekend. So my VO2 max is like as high as it's going to get for this training cycle. And I feel it. Like I feel like a beast right now.
I love
and
that.
then like, I know it's the best. I love when you're at that point where you're just like crazy fit and it feels super good. And then you have off season and you lose a little bit. But yeah, and I'm sure that my VO2 max would probably be better than it was when I did the test, but probably not by much, you know? But I think that the test is really cool. I would say like if anyone listening is curious about doing one, I would recommend it. And also if you realize that your VO2 max is not in the ideal optimal range, that's really good information for you to actually target your training a little bit more around that.
And then just to understand it a little bit more about like even your cardiovascular health too. Because I think a lot of people think that their cardiovascular health is decent because they walk a lot or whatever it may be, but maybe that's not the right stimulus for them to see that VO2 max. Because I know for myself, like when I was doing a lot of intense endurance stuff last year I felt like at times my cardio was actually getting worse. And I think that if I would have done VO2 max testing, that would have been proven. But then when I changed the style of training to shorter, more frequent, intense sessions, all of a sudden it's like, wow, I feel like, ooh, I'm actually fit. Versus before, I was feeling like I was dragging my ass all the time.
Yeah. Well, and I think sometimes people mistake volume for like intensity. Mm-hmm. And so like there is a specific way to train VO2 max. And it's not just like, do more cardio. It's more specific than that. So yeah, anyway, I wanted to ask you about that because I was curious. I have another random question for you just for fun because I was thinking about this before our call. And you have to think on your toes here. What do you think is the most underrated machine at the gym?
Like in terms of testing or like in terms of like a piece of equipment for...
Like for
exercise.
Working out. Like, yeah, for exercise. Like something that people maybe don't gravitate toward, don't really know how to use, but it's actually a really cool piece of equipment for whatever purpose.
On the cardio side, I think that rowers are very underrated. And I see a lot of, especially like people that aren't sure how to use it properly, shy away from it. But it's such a compound piece of equipment. I think you do a lot of bang for your buck. And if you learn how to do it efficiently, it can really train power and coordination in your body. We're looking at like more the strength side. I think a cable machine is so underrated. It's so versatile. And you're going to get a different tension curve than using just dumbbells and barbells for strength training. It's kind of like my 2 cents on it. And if someone was to ask me, Alicia, what equipment would you get for a home gym? I would probably skip over a lot of the dumbbells and barbells and actually get just a cable stack that has multi-purpose.
Yeah, that's smart. I always say like I would get a squat rack because there's a lot of versatility with that. Yeah. But not nearly as much as with a cable machine. Like you can do all kinds of creative stuff with a cable machine.
Yeah. And also you can do like big compounds versus small isolation, which I think for a lot of us, we neglect the small isolation stuff that works. Those annoying little stabilizers that we all need to work on.
Yes, we do. And I was thinking about it because I did a long session on the stair mill this morning.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's only like 5 people at the gym that actually use those. And a lot of people that do use the stair mill are on there for like 5 minutes and then they get off because they can't handle the torture. I think the stair mill is such an awesome tool for getting an intense cardio session in. And there's actually a surprising amount of different things you can do on the stair mill. Obviously, you're walking up stairs the whole time, but like you can do intervals, you can do like all kinds of stuff. I'm the psycho stepping sideways and alternating steps, and it's fun. You can get like glute specific work on that. You can do all kinds of things. You can also I like to do little sprints on there. And they're horrible. But if you want to get to like your maximum heart rate, you can definitely do that on a stair mill very easily.
Yeah.
Okay, but enough of the random things I want to talk about today. Let's talk about our topic.
So if you're coming to this episode and you're like, what the heck is an adaptogen? Don't worry. We're going to clear it all up. So they're actually natural compounds. So they're herbs, roots, mushrooms, something that we find in nature. And they claim to help the body adapt to stress. So defined as substances that improve the general function of the organism by modulating the endocrine response or the hormone response, enhancing the capability or the capacity for autoregulation and supporting the immune system, whereby facilitating adaptation of various stressors. So long story short, it is actually changing our body's response to stress and our immune system response to external factors that are coming in. So these products are actually rooted historically. I first heard about some of these products when I was doing my master's degree, and I was like, my stress levels were like way up here, as anyone who's trying to become a dietitian is. And I saw a traditional Chinese medicine doctor, and they were like giving me all these different kind of potions to drink that had adaptogens in them. So TCM is one area. Ayurveda, I know a lot of my clients that are more going back towards like more spiritual, historical treatment methods have told me a lot about these from like a cultural context. So the term adaptogen was actually formalized in Soviet research back in the day. Criteria for actually what is classified as an adaptogen, because I think we throw this term around and we blanket it so people actually understanding what falls under this. It enhances your resistance to stress. It has a normalizing effect on physiology. So if our body is in a state of fight or flight, it's actually helping our body to calm down. And then it's non-toxic at standard doses. And then when we look at the actual mechanism, so we don't want to dive too much into the mechanism because actually some of the substances we don't clearly understand how it affects our body.
Magic.
It is, oh my
magic
God.
Potion. It's obviously magic.
Yeah, 100%. So for those of you that are like science junkies out there, so giving you a little bit of context, we talk about the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. So the hypothalamus, the pituitary gland, and the adrenal axis is the primary kind of neuroendocrine system that controls our stress and reaction. It affects our digestive system. So if you're someone that has IBS and you find, hey, you get stressed, and then your system goes, woo, no more. Or if you're finding that like maybe you're someone that something stressful happens, you do an exam at school, and then all of a sudden your body kind of shuts down and you get really sick afterwards. This is the system that controls that, as well as energy expenditure when we're dealing with cortisol release. Also, these substances interact with our nervous system signaling and our fatigue pathways. And that's a big marketing factor for a lot of these substances is they are marketing towards helping with energy and helping manage fatigue associated with stress, whether it's emotional, physical, psychological stress. That's the main thing. So the big thing is adaptogens are not stimulants. They're not sedatives. Those are two very different categories that are separate from adaptogens. They're known as modulators. So they're modulating the response of different systems in the body.
That's exactly what I was going to ask/highlight. I think sometimes people are taking adaptogens under the assumption that like they're going to change their state. So if they are at homeostasis, maybe they'll make them feel like even more calm or even more stimulated or kind of like wired. But that's not actually the case. It's like if your system is out of homeostasis for whatever reason, it kind of helps to bring you back.
Exactly.
So why is everyone talking about adaptogens right now? Because they are not new. They have been around for a very, very long time. Here's why. Wellness brands and probably Instagram and TikTok and just how there's such a plethora of information out there now. And it's so attractive to have these products on the market. There's functional beverages. There's those drinks that you see all the time. The recess drinks. Have you seen those? I tried one once. It was okay. They're just so overpriced.
They are very, very expensive.
Like, dude, I don't want to spend that kind of money on a beverage that's like...
Because is that, my question is that dosage in one drink at one time really going to do anything to my stress levels?
Yeah. Also, a lot of these adaptogens taste disgusting. So if you are having enough to have the response that they're claiming to provide, your beverage it's likely going to taste really gross unless they're covering it up with a lot of different things.
Yeah, which is, I'm actually curious to look at the nutrition facts on some of them now that you've mentioned that, because I'm curious to see like what are they adding to kind of cover up the flavor, because I think some of them they are adding stuff. So like
yeah. I mean, I think other strong flavors, right? Like I always think about the best flavor disguiser is peanut butter, because it's so intense that you can hide like almost anything with peanut butter. Obviously, these are not peanut butter drinks. That would be weird and gross.
It's usually like strong citrus, like especially grapefruit, which for me is always like a little bit of a red flag just because grapefruit has contraindications with so many different medications. And some of the people that might be looking for adaptogens are people with high blood pressure and that might have actually interactions with grapefruit. So
yeah. Also, ginger, I think, is one that they often, because that one's really intense. So they'll do like a lemon and a ginger, and then that kind of distracts from whatever strange bitter flavor you might be getting from some of the adaptogens. These things are appealing because they do make promises to us, right? And they will for sure say that on the product label because that's what's getting you to buy it. They're claiming to make you feel calmer, to have more energy, to have better focus, all of these different purposes. It's like the idea of, oh, I'll just drink this recess drink and I don't have to focus on my sleep. I don't have to manage my stress. I don't have to eat better or exercise regularly. I can just drink this one drink and then I'll feel great again. Obviously, that's not the case. Most of the symptoms that people are trying to fix when they lean toward these adaptogen beverages or powders or products or cappuccinos or whatever, they're trying to manage their fatigue. They're trying to manage brain fog. Oftentimes they're trying to manage poor recovery, which that's a sign. All of these things are a message. And when our body is sending us a message like this, we need to tap in and ask some questions and maybe not just pour a beverage on top of it. These things are often marketed as a shortcut to feeling better, which isn't necessarily the primary strategy that we should be taking.
And I think for some people that are looking at adaptogens, they might be actually going through major mental health crises. I know I've had a lot of conversations with clients that have gone through like a major anxiety episode in their life, had a major life event happen, pushing them into like depression. And they're seeing these as a natural alternative to going on medication because maybe they're hesitant, or maybe they're like, I want to take the supplement and then I don't have to do therapy. And we want to make it really clear that these products are not a replacement for evidence-based treatment for mental health. So if you're dealing with trauma, OCD, depression, insomnia, panic, whatever, first of all, like talk to your doctor, first of all, about your different options and be wary of a lot of these supplements. The evidence is so small in terms of the effects, and usually the effects that these would have are very small in comparison to what a medication could actually have. And a lot of times, even when we look at the research, they are shorter trials. So we're looking at like a very short window. Like maybe they're using them for 6 weeks or 6 months. Like they're not usually looking at the long-term kind of uses of them. And we're not usually using a psychiatric care environment for these. They are meant to be more of an adjunctive therapy. So meaning that they give additional support for some of these other therapies that exist, medications, therapy, whatever it is, for stress, for mild fatigue, for sleep quality. They're not interchangeable with an SSRI or an SNRI. I know I've definitely had these conversations with clients, and I think it's important to make sure that you have these distinguished. And if you're someone that's struggling, make sure that we're working on other things that will help be supportive to your treatment. So whether it's working on making sure we're putting good food into our body, and we're working on our sleep hygiene, we're working on kind of the lifestyle components that will help in addition to the therapy, and then maybe looking at one of these as well, but it's not a replacement.
Yeah, I think that's a super important distinction to make. Let's dive into some of the specific adaptogens, though. And I love the first one that we're going to talk about because this is one that I've taken myself.
Yeah.
Have you taken it?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
And I found out afterwards that many of my conditions are contraindicated with it.
Oh, boy. Okay. So we can talk about our individual experiences with it.
Yeah.
I am not currently taking it, but I have taken it in the past. My husband has taken it. Alicia has taken it. So we can give you some personal opinions on this particular one. And we are talking about ashwagandha. So ashwagandha, kind of the claims around this particular adaptogen are that it reduces stress and anxiety, that it improves sleep, that it lowers cortisol, and that it supports strength/recovery. That's typically what it is recommended for. So for people who might be having issues with stress, they might have high cortisol, they might be having issues with sleep that are related to that stress or that high cortisol level, or they have particularly high training loads maybe they're training for an event or something. And this is designed as a way to help them recover a little bit better because they're just taking on a lot. Evidence-wise, there are actually multiple randomized controlled trials that show reductions in perceived stress and anxiety scores versus placebo. So a person's own perception of their stress, self-reported. Some studies are showing or have shown modest reductions in cortisol as well, which is actually, that's pretty powerful. It's pretty promising if this can help to lower cortisol levels. There are also meta-analyses that support small to moderate improvements in stress outcomes in individuals. And strength and performance-wise, it has been shown that there have been some improvements in resistance training adaptations, but minimal when it comes to endurance training. And sadly, these were not seen consistently across all populations. So a little bit less strong evidence in terms of the training adaptations, sadly. There are, of course, as always, some limitations with the studies that have been done, mostly that they're small sample sizes. You'll notice that across the board. That's kind of like an issue with all of these. They're also short duration, only about 6 to 12 weeks for most of them, and different extract types. So it's not standardized in terms of dose and delivery method across all of the studies. So it's hard to define exactly how much to take and in what way it should be taken. Takeaway here with ashwagandha, it's actually likely one of the better supported adaptogens. It's one of the more well-researched adaptogens out there that we've seen. The effects are modest, though. They're not dramatic. You're not going to like take ashwagandha and then 4 seconds later, all of your stress just dissolves into thin air. That's not how that works. But the research does show that there might be some actual improvements in cortisol levels and perceived stress when taking ashwagandha.
So when you were taking it, Tara, like, what did you notice?
Nothing. I would take it at night before bed. My coach actually recommended it to me because I was training very intensely. I tend to be injury prone. So we're kind of like, let's attack this from all angles. And so I would like take it before bed and just kind of like cross my fingers that it was doing something. And I don't know, it probably did something, but I couldn't like feel it. It kind of reminded me of like a multivitamin. You don't take a multivitamin and suddenly feel like more nourished. You feel exactly the same. And it felt that way for me. But my husband, on the other hand, he has really bad issues with insomnia and a lot of like anxiety and sometimes stress too. And so I was like, well, maybe try some ashwagandha, see if it'll help your sleep. And it did really help his sleep. He would take it before bed, just like I did. And he found that he was able to fall asleep quicker and stay asleep longer when taking ashwagandha.
So that's really interesting because I find of my male and female clients that use ashwagandha, all the males, for the most part, see positive effects from taking ashwagandha, and the female clients don't see much effect, if any.
That is really interesting.
And there's been no like evidence around that, but this is just like, I think like if I look at the sample size of like 15 or 20 clients that have taken ashwagandha, I would say maybe a little under half are men. And I would say like 80% of those men that have taken it saw a positive effect versus maybe like 2 or 3 clients that are women that have seen any positive effect. I find the next one we're going to talk about, I have had better luck with female clients.
That is so interesting. I wonder if there's something to that. I will say, I will add though too, and I know, Alicia, you and I have talked a little bit about this. The benefits did not last long term for him.
Yeah.
So after a few months, it started to fade.
And we're going to talk about it a little bit at the end of like, do you need to cycle on and off of it? And like, anyways, but the one, like, I know when I took it, I didn't really notice much of effect, and that I noticed it actually flared up my IBS really badly after taking it for a while, because some of the suggested dosages are such that it could irritate the gut. And It's actually contraindicated with autoimmunes. So it's contraindicated if you're on thyroid medication, because it can actually make the thyroid medication less effective, even if it's taking like long times away. And then for women that are hormone sensitive, they say that it can actually cause more of like a negative effect. They don't understand quite the mode of action, but they said there's like a contraindication with like women who notice more shifts from like progesterone or estrogen. If you're someone that has like very dramatic shifts during the month and you notice like hormonal migraines or something like that, there is a little bit of evidence showing that like it might not be the best option for you.
That's interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, you want to talk about the next one?
For sure. Rhodiola rosacea. So that's the second, I would say like the second most common that I've seen. And as we were kind of mentioning, like I've seen a lot of my female clients use it. The big thing with rhodiola, I think it's different in the sense of we talk a lot about rhodiola in the context of more sport. We talk about it for performance benefits, reducing fatigue. So more for people that are finding that they're stressed to a point that their energy is feeling very depleted, and it's supposedly increases our focus under stress and improves endurance. So some studies, and I was actually looking, I don't know if you use examine.com. I love examine.com. And actually, I love how they rate the quality of evidence. And so rhodiola is actually one of the ones that has B plus rated evidence. So that's, I would say on Examine, that's actually a pretty high rating. We see reduced perceived fatigue from training and from life, improved time to exhaustion, and possible VO2 improvements. However, the effects are often more noticeable in individuals who are actually fatigued. So if you're in a place that you're feeling like really good already, you're well fueled, you're sleeping well, and you start to pop rhodiola thinking that's going to give you the extra edge, maybe that's not going to make a huge difference. But if you're in a place of fatigue and you're trying to do all the things to get you back to a baseline, you might notice a difference from just adding the rhodiola in. So that's something to kind of like take consideration if that's something that sounds appealing to you. The findings are still mixed though. And a lot of issues with dosing. So rhodiola, I know I've seen anywhere from 250 to 750 milligrams, but the dosing matters, the timing matters, the extract matters, and we don't consistently see the performance enhancing because we don't have enough research. It's more about the perception of fatigue versus actual performance that we're seeing in the research. Have you tried rhodiola?
No, I haven't, but it sounds like it's definitely not an ergonomic aid. So
No, but I personally have seen, like if I think of ashwagandha, I would say, hey, maybe 40-60 in terms of people that it's helped, preferably male. Not preferably, but mostly male clients. If I think about rhodiola, of the clients that maybe I've mentioned it to or they've looked into it, I would say maybe 70% saw positive outcomes, whether it's placebo or not. We'll talk about that, but especially like burnt out individuals. That's who I find rhodiola responds really well to. It's people that are trying to make improvements to their sleep and trying to make improvements to their lifestyle, but they're feeling really, really burnt out that actually benefit from it, versus people that are pretty good baseline. They're just looking for that extra edge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So like I imagine, let's say a new parent who isn't getting good sleep, who just went back to work and is just feeling super spent and exhausted.
That's really funny that you say that, because that was exactly who I spoke to yesterday about it. It's one of my friend's wives who she's like trying to get back to work soon. She's got a little one at home. Her sleep schedule's screwed up. She's trying to regulate her sleep, but it's really hard. She's feeling like super on edge just because she's got a baby waking her up all the time. The baby's adorable, don't get me wrong, but it's just like, it's hard.
Yeah. I don't care how cute you are. It's still messing with the sleep. The cuteness is not going to help with the sleep. Yeah. I mentioned that because I have a client who's in that boat right now. Yeah. And she's struggling, which of course, right? I mean, it's like one of the most difficult times of life.
It's a big adjustment to all of your routines. And especially if you're someone that is used to a certain routine in terms of your sleep and your training and your food, that's a big shift.
Totally. We need to like pull out all the tools in the toolbox. Let's talk about lion's mane, which arguably may have the coolest name of all of these adaptogens.
Is lion's mane, it's a mushroom, right?
Yeah, it's a mushroom.
That's the one that they put in the coffee, I think.
Yeah, lion's mane, and I think reishi. I think they put that. I think put them both in.
Both. Yeah.
A blend of the two, oftentimes. The main claims with this one are that it improves memory, it enhances focus, and it supports brain health. So a bit of a shift from the other two. This kind of reminds me of like the claims around ginkgo, similar to that. You know, it's like, oh, maybe I should use this if I'm trying to study for an exam, or if I have an important interview coming up, or if I have to do a stressful presentation, maybe this will help me to be more cognitively sharp so that I can better handle that. Unfortunately, the evidence is from small human trials. They do show slight improvements in mild cognitive impairment. They do show some mood benefits. The mechanism that they've noticed or that they've studied as being responsible for these responses is nerve growth factor, or NGF. So that's kind of like, I was going to say the root of it, and then I was going to say no pun intended, but this is a mushroom, not a root. So sadly, no pun. There are limitations to, of course, there are limitations to the research that's been done. It's still very early in its stages. The sample sizes are small and the results are inconsistent. So we have seen some positive changes in some individuals, but not enough to make any claims at this time. Pretty much the takeaway here is that this is an interesting, very cool sounding adaptogen. There may be some benefits, but the evidence is still emerging on this one. This is where the marketing is really ahead of the science. The marketing is really, really good, but the science, not so much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember it's been years since I've seen the mushroom coffee. Like, I think if I think back, like 2017 was the first time that I ever crossed paths with mushroom coffee. And at that point, it was a coffee replacement that was like a ground mushroom powder, so it had no actual coffee. Now I see it's mushroom coffee that's mushroom and coffee together. And actually learning a little bit more about it, that it has to do more with like cognitive stuff. That actually makes sense to me why they would pair it with a coffee. Mm-hmm. They're just trying to give you that extra little bit of an edge.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. There's a cafe that's around the corner from the gym that I go to that always has a little sign out front that they've got the mushroom. I think it's like a chaga latte, they call it or something. Yeah, they've got a little sign out front. And every time I see it, I'm like, that sounds gross.
You're gonna have to try it and like report back on the flavor, because I don't know how I feel about mushroom and coffee. I've never tried it. So
yeah, I'm not gonna try it. I don't want to try it. Like I'm a little bit of a purist with my coffee. I like it to be, we've talked about this before, I like it to be just coffee. You know who we should get to try it is Summer.
Yeah. So Summer, if you're listening to this episode while you're traveling to Vegas, you need to try a chaga latte, please, and put that with your collagen and your creatine and all the other 20 things you put into your coffee.
Yeah, the cup's going to get really big.
It's going to be really thick.
Yeah. Ugh.
Like a Turkish coffee kind of situation.
Yeah, although I do like Turkish coffee.
Mm-hmm. So Tara, there's another mushroom. If you want to tell us a little bit more about the other mushroom.
Reishi, less cool of a name, but still kind of cool sounding. So the claims around reishi are mostly around sleep and calming. So they say that it helps to improve sleep, it helps to reduce stress, and that it supports immune function. So this is the first one where we've mentioned immunity, which is kind of cool. I know most of us are looking for ways to support our immune system. Nobody likes to get sick. It's the worst. So let's talk a little bit about the evidence. So the evidence with reishi mostly comes from the use in traditional medicine or alternative medicine, not necessarily structured scientific research studies. And there is also some animal / preclinical data as well on reishi, but there is definitely limited high quality human trials on this one. So there is lower evidence, but it's also relatively low risk. It is just a mushroom. It is considered to be non-toxic at normal doses. So, it could help you possibly, but this is one of the ones that there's just not a lot of data around it. So it's a little bit more of a shot in the dark.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think for me, it's one of those things that's like, yes, there might be low risk associated with it, but is there actually any benefit to it too? Am I just going to end up having expensive pee? Or like in my case, am I just going to end up with an upset stomach? Because I find a lot of times when I try these products, even though it's like promised benefits, I'm like, I don't want a stomach ache. It's not worth it.
Yeah. Same here. I just don't really have an interest in it.
Yeah.
Also, like, I mean, we know so much about food and nutrition and all of these things. I know all of these other things that I can put into my body that are well researched that will make me feel good and support my health and my immune system and all those things that I'm like, maybe I don't waste my time on reishi. Maybe I just have some like berries.
Yeah, exactly. Going from like something that has proven cause and effect. There's two other ones that we haven't really touched on. They're much smaller in terms of the evidence and what the proposed effect is. So the one is Tulsi. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. So there's very small studies that are very early in its conception. They're more looking at like stress and blood sugar response. So for anyone who listened to the cortisol episode, stress can cause highs and lows in terms of our blood glucose level, depending on the individual, depending on if it's acute or chronic stress, which the blood sugar roller coaster is not a fun ride to be on. And some of our symptoms of burnout can actually be associated with blood sugar. So that's where Tulsi is kind of coming in. But again, very limited research, but it is on the more promising side. And it's one that if you look at Examine, there is some like C plus and B minus evidence. And then the other one is maca. And I know I've seen maca quite a bit, more so in the perceived energy side and the libido side. It does not actually have any direct effect on hormones, even though when I've seen it marketed, it's talking about balancing your hormones, which is always a very scary claim. I'm like, when I see that on labels, I'm like, run away. That is not a good thing. Because I don't want to take anything that's going to start screwing with my hormones. There's already too much in life that will affect your hormones.
But it says, I mean, like the research shows that it actually doesn't even affect hormones.
No, it doesn't.
It's like, I think maca is one of the ones that I've seen the most out there claims about, like, especially around libido and stuff. It's like, there just isn't any data to really back up that it is effective in that area. But hey, great. If you take it and the placebo effect kicks in and you're like rearing to go, like, great, you know, go for it. But not enough strong data or evidence to support that it's going to have an effect like that.
And I think that's the moral of the story for a lot of these. It's like they have some evidence, but very few actually have a lot of strong evidence, with ashwagandha and rhodiola being the main two that have a larger body of evidence, but not necessarily a great big huge. And it was funny because I wanted to come back to the history, and I looked back, like they were using it, like ashwagandha, rhodiola, and some of these other adaptogens during World War II as a way to enhance athletic performance and stress adaptation with the military. So super interesting, but it's kind of like, I feel like understanding how they came to be gives me more insight into how we're using them in today's day and age.
That's really interesting because a lot of times when we are looking for good data around things like herbs and adaptogens and things like that, it's difficult to find solid data. And part of the reason is that there's not a lot of funding for researching these things because there's not as much money in it as something like a pharmaceutical. So the fact that the military was looking at adaptogens makes sense as to why those two have more research, because there was actually legitimate funding from the military for a purpose.
Yeah.
Whereas some of these other ones, if they weren't researched in that type of capacity, it's just difficult to get money for doing that kind of research. So it's like, even with a lot of these, sure, we say, oh, the research is in its infancy and there is some things that look promising, but realistically, I don't think a lot of people are throwing tons of money into this type of research.
No, unfortunately, which is like, I wish there was more funding for that, but
Me too. It's just not the way the world works.
Nope.
Let's talk about who should and maybe who shouldn't use adaptogens. I think you've gotten a little bit of an idea of what our 2 cents are on them. Some people may benefit from taking adaptogens. So people that are under mild to moderate stress could benefit from taking an adaptogen. Individuals with fatigue or burnout might benefit from taking one of these adaptogens. And athletes during a high training load, potential for benefit, a little bit less solid evidence for that one. But probably if you are experiencing a higher level of stress or are hoping to come kind of back down to your homeostasis, adaptogens might help you to do that, help to manage your stress a little bit outside of all of the other things that you should be doing to help manage your stress. Adaptogens are absolutely not ideal for people that are expecting dramatic changes. So if you feel like you need something that can do some heavy lifting with your mood, your stress, your anxiety, you're probably going to want to talk to your doctor about something a little bit stronger than ashwagandha. Those that are ignoring the foundational habits probably aren't going to be, it's not going to harm them necessarily to take an adaptogen, but it's also not getting at the root cause that needs to be addressed to begin with. So if, like we mentioned, if you're not getting good sleep, if you're not managing your stress in other ways, maybe try some meditation, try some walking, try some deep breathing. If you're eating terribly, if you're not moving your body regularly, these are all things that we should tackle first because they're going to make a lot larger of an impact on what you're experiencing than drinking a recess. Sorry, recess, we're throwing you under the bus a lot. And then also, like I mentioned, individuals with clinical anxiety or depression should talk to their doctor and not try to replace well-studied treatments with an adaptogen. And just as an important reminder, these are adjuncts. They are not primary interventions. So they're not designed to be used like that.
So I'm going to take a moment to go over some controversial information online, common questions that I know that I get from a lot of my clients. And so one of the questions that I get, do you need a certain level of the adaptogen to build up in your system in order for it to work? So to understand this, I know for some medications, going to one that I take, levothyroxine, you need to be taking it for a few months in order to reap the benefit because you need a certain level to build up in your bloodstream. There is, so kind of going to some of these drinks, going back to what we've already kind of touched on, there's some of these where take a one-off drink and it's going to make us feel better. No. Some of them, we do require you to take it more consistently for a certain amount to build up into your body to actually have an actual effect. However, they're not like other nutrients that you need them to kind of accumulate significantly, or I think the inverse of that is I think some people are afraid what happens if it builds up in my bloodstream? Is it going to be crazy harmful, like the accumulation of microplastics, for example? Shameless plug, refer back to our microplastics episode. It doesn't accumulate that either. So if you're worried about if you take something like this and you're like, oh, well, what if it doesn't work for me? Or can it give me side effects? Well, it's not going to accumulate. So you go off of it and it should cycle out of your system. In terms of cycling on and off of them. So I know for some individuals, they will take a certain supplement for a certain amount of time. An example would be like vitamin D. You might take it during the winter months, and then as soon as the summer comes, you come off of it because you don't necessarily need it. For other people, they go on and off of it. Like I have some clients that will go on and off of creatine just because they find they get a little puffy from it. They go off of it. They feel a little better. They go back onto it. There's not enough evidence to show that you need to cycle on and off of adaptogens. It's more anecdotal. We know that these adaptogens are only really researched in the 6 to 12 week period. We see the best benefit in a 6 to 12 week period. Because of that, there might be some benefit from taking it for a shorter length of time, like 6 to 12 weeks, going off of it to kind of almost hit reset. And then if you need it again, the thing is, if you need it again, our goal to use something like an adaptogen wouldn't be you're on it for the rest of your life. It's kind of like using it more as needed. And Tara, you have a thought.
I'm looking up recess drinks because I want to see if they say anything stupid on them in terms of their marketing and stuff. It seems like what their kind of angle is non-alcoholic alternatives. So oh, drink this instead of alcohol and it'll be better. And yeah, I mean, anything is going to be better for you pretty much than drinking alcohol because it's terrible for you. But they've got all these mocktails in here. Yeah, they've got all kinds of stuff. I was looking for claims, but okay, here we go. On the back, it says it's got a few adaptogens and they've got some caffeine in there. It says eases tension, lightens the mood. scientific term, lightens the mood. Supports equilibrium, helps you unwind, and nootropic for a balanced twist.
Okay. What does that actually mean, though?
Yeah, I know. And then it says for alcohol-free moments and social connection, partying with friends at the park, beach, or pool, at a dinner party, or unwinding at home. So yeah, if you drink these, you get to make better connections with your friends.
There used to be this product that I was getting targeted ads for when I was not drinking alcohol leading up to the wedding that was like this wine replacement that was like these tinctures that you added to water. And they had like pretty large amounts of different like nootropics and adaptogens. I need to look into the brand because I'm really curious now that we're talking about this, what brand it is. And I'll get back to you in the next episode. I'll let you know.
Yeah, let me know. I'm curious. A lot of them have like CBD in them as well. So they're kind of like mixing different, well, it's a potion. They're just mixing different things.
Apothecary, that's what it's called.
Oh, I think I have heard of that.
Take the edge off or wind down.
Yeah, they're using these terms that are like, they're not a claim. That's strategic, people. Mm-hmm. If you say something that is not associated with a claim or a health-related claim or whatever, you can use that for marketing and it's not going to be problematic. So if I say this drink will help you unwind, well, that doesn't really mean anything. Like if I crack open a sparkling water and put my feet up, I could feel like I'm unwinding doing that. And you can just market the beverage as helping you to do that.
Yeah. Actually, these ones aren't bad because they're L-theanine. They're actually like, they're different. I stand corrected because what I thought they were is different. And that's the kind of like brings me to the next topic of, are more ingredients better? A lot of times we see these like proprietary blends. People think proprietary blends is a good thing. Personally, if you see a proprietary blend, run away or be very skeptical. Because usually a proprietary blend means that they're not disclosing how much of each ingredient is in the product. So you don't know if there's rhodiola and ashwagandha, is there actually an effective dosage in there? And a lot of times the answer is no. Usually it's very small amounts of like 10 different ingredients that you're actually better to pick and choose what ingredients you are going to like actually see the effect of. And if it does help you, and maybe that product gets discontinued, because that is common, that you find a cool product and you're like, hey, use it forever. And then it gets discontinued and you're like, I don't know which of these 20 ingredients are actually helping me, because it's usually not all of them. It's one or two of them. It makes it a lot harder. And then we've kind of touched on this a little bit, but we have heard the term hormone balancing come up with these claims many times. And it's very oversimplified.
Anything that says hormone balancing on it, just dig deep, do a little research on that one, because that term is already a red flag. I was thinking when you were talking about the tiny amounts of ingredients, I had two thoughts. One, it's cheaper to just put a tiny, like one molecule of ashwagandha in there and you get to say it has ashwagandha in it. And people are like, I'll pay $9 for this can of gross tasting sparkling water.
Yeah.
So that's a thing that these companies are trying to make a buck. That's cool. We're all trying to make a buck, but just be aware of what you're consuming. Also, there's a product that I really like, but it's kind of falls under this category, but in a different kind of way. I like the Perfect Bars. I like the Perfect Bar minis.
Yeah.
And if you look at the ingredients, they've got so many different like vegetables in them. And it's like, the thing is like 2 inches long, like there's probably one molecule of broccoli in there, especially because there's so many different, it's so funny. Like, I don't know why they even bother to put that many different things in there. Maybe
because they can say that there's 20 different fruits and vegetables in there, Tara. Come on. That's like, what how they're going to sell it to us.
Actually, it just tastes good. That's why I got it. And there's no blatantly fake stuff in there. Mm-hmm. It's just silly. It's like, and it's for marketing. But yeah, there's so many products out there like that. The greens powders are like that too. A lot of them have 30,000 ingredients and hardly any of them.
Mm-hmm. Which people can refer back and learn about greens powders. And I think in like episode 2 or 3 that we did.
Like
it was,
3, that was
one of our first episodes was all about green powders and apple cider vinegar. So
okay, so let's wrap it up with the takeaway here.
Yes. Well, we want to know if people are looking at taking an adaptogen, how do they do it properly? What are the main takeaways? What should they know?
If you are thinking, I want to keep taking my adaptogens, or I think I want to start taking an adaptogen because my stress is through the roof and I'm already doing everything right or whatever, the already doing everything right is step one when it comes to using adaptogens properly. So you want to make sure that the first thing you do is fix the foundation. We don't want to have our whole lives be a complete mess, but then we're taking adaptogens thinking that that's going to help everything. We need to pay attention to making sure that we're getting enough calories, that we're getting enough of the macronutrients, getting enough carbohydrates, protein, healthy fats to help reduce inflammation and all of that good stuff. Hydration, of course, these are our basic human needs. We need to be better about them, a lot of us. Sleep, of course, is on that list as well. And then we want to layer them strategically. Instead of being like, I feel super stressed and I want to fix this, I'm going to take ashwagandha and all the other things, and maca and like everything. Let's start with one at a time and then see how you respond. Especially because if you don't respond well to it, you want to know what to cut out. Mm-hmm. But if you do respond well to it, then okay, cool. We know that that is effective for you. And maybe we should keep that in the rotation. And it should be specific in terms of what goal you're trying to tackle. So if you're just like, I don't really feel good, I'm going to take adaptogens. Well, what exactly are you trying to combat? Is it mental clarity? Is it getting your cortisol down? Because those are two different adaptogens that we want to be targeting for each of those things. So focus on the specific goal at hand and then track your response. Journaling is great for this. Tracking your energy, how your sleep is, your mood, your performance if you are exercising, hopefully you are, and just seeing if there's any notable changes. And, it might be placebo, it might not be. And then reassess. So you don't want to just continue taking things blindly without paying attention to how your body is feeling. You want to kind of continually reassess and do this with all your supplements. Like, is this something that I want to continue taking? Do I feel like this is really benefiting me? Should I continue spending my money on this? I do this. There are supplements that I have taken, like ashwagandha, for a period of time because it was recommended to me. And then I ran out of it and I was like, you know what? I don't think I need to continue taking this. I've done that with so many different things, especially if you're like trying to save money. Sometimes the first thing to get cut is supplements that you might not really need.
The supplement industry is out to get us and all of our money.
Yes. Yeah. And that's something that we help people do, actually. I spend a lot of time when I first start working with clients asking them exactly what they're taking, getting their supplement list, getting their medications list, making sure there aren't any interactions, because a lot of times there are, and looking for things that might not be actually effective for what they're dealing with. And then we get that list down, and it's honestly awesome because nobody wants to be taking 1,000 pills and powders every day. We want to just be taking what we need.
Exactly.
And what's actually effective.
In terms of our final takeaways, adaptogens are promising, but they are not magic and they are not necessarily essential. Focus on treating nutrition, sleep, activity, lifestyle first. And then if you are curious about adaptogens, the ones that are best supported are ashwagandha and rhodiola. Things that are emerging are lion's mane and reishi. But if we are going to use them, make sure you're being intentional about it, make sure you're being selective, and don't just blindly take it just because you heard about it in this episode or you saw a TikToker telling you to take it.
It's probably not going to balance your hormones.
Definitely not.
If everything else is dialed in, or at least mostly everything else, adaptogens might give you a small edge, but they're never going to be the foundation. Thank you all for joining us today on this fun topic about adaptogens. If you found this to be interesting or helpful, or you know someone who's spending way too much money on recess drinks, I keep wanting to say Reese's.
Maybe just chocolate peanut butter on brain.
Yeah, I mean, when is that not on my brain? Anyway, if you know someone who's spending way too much money on their adaptogens or has magical thinking around what they're actually doing for them, this might be a helpful podcast for them to listen to. Make sure to like, to subscribe, to follow, and we will see you next time.